Johnny. Johnny Ludlow. There was the time, terrible flatulence. And so I said, well, everyone, you see. They moved on to me. Quite a lovely ceremony. The whole thing was made completely out of rubber. In fact, we communicated the whole time with sign language. You know that, anyone that follows their big and biggest world, but anyway, a rather striking moustache. And I said, wow, you see. You know, you can actually drive one of those cars on 3 wheels. I asked this. I'm afraid I was very drunk. That was Johnny Ludlow. Cairo. Yes, I maybe rushing through this, but find it very unstable politically. Pandemonium. But luckily for myself, large, a poisonous monkey. Yes, interestingly, it's an eye. Very small chaps, but immensely strong. Yes, very I wasn't it hard like that. It was a completely wasted journey. It was very friendly about it. I said, suddenly, snake! Snake! Gin. But I rushed it, poured it on there. Lift the fire up like they would have. What I do? I mean, I made a dreadful hash of his arm. I really did. That was lay back and landed like that for us. Sometime later, I freely admit that I was very, very drunk.
Once in every lifetime.
That's it. I and I remember it was just outside Edinburgh. I don't want to. I said to her, get a man in. Bloody indeed. Well, a makeshift crutch. The whole bloody leg was completely he didn't wake up for 3 days. 3 bloody days. I remember laughing now. Oh, I'm afraid I was very, very, very drunk.
I love flying, I do.
Yeah, frankly, I mean, vast ice floes. It's like having before. But there he was, staring at me, 6'8" if he was an inch. And I mean, you can see, and it was, the whole thing was made out of matchsticks. I laugh now. I mean, imagine this strange image of a 4-star Nazi general licking a lollipop. With it outside the car, it got standing here, and I was up there, I was feeling a little liverish. It punched me right on the nose. I really didn't feel a thing, because, you see, I was very drunk. Let's tell you about this first time. When I was young, I mean, it happens to every young man, I'm sure. I remember she was a really beautiful woman. And I was absolutely responsible on her. She had a very long neck. That's marvelous thing. She had very intelligent, really piercing eyes. And of course, war came along. That was really between us. I remember that I was just a beautiful song. I can't remember it anymore. I was in absolute floods of tears. It was really very cold, and she was. I held her in my arms. I'm afraid I was very drunk. Bang! Got back up the arse. Now, did I ever tell you about what happened to me in 1934? I remember quite vividly now. She came in, and she was the saddest woman and the tallest woman I've ever met. I really quite tried for her. I don't know if you remember it, but her husband had been entombed in ice like this. Oh, and I remember quite vividly at the time, people were kind of running out of there because we'd been cut off by a terrific snowstorm. Yes. I know the situation myself. Actually, it was extremely cold, and we were plunged into total darkness. Right to one of my experiments, I was little air like that, devil's breath. And, well, she was sitting there like that. I was over there, he was there like that, and we heard what sounded like a child's voice, like this. Mama, 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 mama. Oh, she was kind of, first of all, I had to get there, like that, and closer it came, until finally, in the end, she didn't no more. She arched her back and scuttled across the room like a giant spider. Well, he went for it, terrorized like this. She opened her mouth to spit, and I cried, ah! Oh. I see another one of those.
Will you put into that, man?
Bugger off. I mean, it may have been a ghost. I don't know, really. I really can't really say anything about it, you see. I'm afraid I was very, very drunk. At the time, I was still a like a giant marshmallow. Forthwith, kind of in the fingerless gloves, very central. And I remember being, kind of just off St. Alexander Square, behind the chocolate shop. The head had become completely detached. I always felt like we were being watched. Like that. Yes, I met apparently I went completely cross-eyed. I can't it now. I mean, you must have been there. Oh, you must go. It's quite beautiful. And now it's all the dividends of past. I really about it was a lorry load of interesting cheeses. There is no art to find the mind's construction of the face. very little animal, only living groups, like little furs, and then they make their burrows in rotten wood. Even then, I mean, I just get and a face like a man baboon and an arse to match. Shoot him, you fool! I didn't hear any of it, of course. I'm afraid I was very, very drunk. I mean, quite as many years ago, I was in Shanghai. To stamp out piracy. And I was quite flummoxed by an outrageous cat. It was a Chinese warlord by the name of... I can't remember the times, but it was... My spirit is that I'm a very considerate lover. The most interesting thing about it is that there's a permanent tap to the gallbladder of these bears. I kept hearing this when I lifted it out there, and it was swollen to twice its usual size, like a nurse. Ha! I lived in Kennerside, the surgeon, sandy hair, obviously homosexual. But I liked him. As he is when I was testimonied, but I was just really, they took it off below the knee. It was a shock like this. Oh, jabbering on and on. And it made no difference to me. I'm afraid I was very drunk. I mean, it was going to be right. I was right to better than that. Just really, this guy there will wanna. Have to go line. Oh dear, it's a kite there. It's kind of swollen, but let's get it up. And it was just tight. It was like this video. Yeah. I said no. I'm afraid I was very, very drunk. I'm terrible like that, lazy things in your brain. It's essentially different like this, and the women there are absolutely sex mad. I managed to drain the wound into a tin cup. In this one, before they bit it. It was quite unsaid. It was pierced labia. I said, by jingo, I realized I'd married 3 of them. Yeah. Hilarious on the eye, because then they made me their chief. Oh, well, I mean, obviously, relationships where we go like that. I mean, the witch doctor never liked me. He was forever burying his brother. But now, it is quite nice of some time. I realized I made a terrible faux pas in their culture. I bluffed my way out. They chased me for several weeks. Like this, very surprising that they didn't catch me because I was absolutely smashed by poisonous frogs. Six-breast.
I love
the painkillers. Completely covered in hair. Don't point that thing at me, she said. And then she came. Blew my hat off. Penicillin. Night, Bevan. The African tiger. Did it ever exist? I mean, quite many years before it's right, but it's literally in the Swedish quarter of town. I'm immensely pleasurable. Oh, yeah. I considered it made by elves in a tiny workshop. Oh, yes, you know. Oh, like this. And like that. Oh, it sprang open in my mouth. I did it. They puff up to 3 times their natural size and eject the hairs from their back like this. Here, I can tell you what's great fun! Oh, yeah, I do this. Literally goes funny. And it likes to turn better and then smite thee down with thine enemies with a sword stick. Oh, yeah. Literally is actually there. In some dark corner of the human soul. There's the 2 tons of angry warthog and luckily this Jay, you can of course fry them and eat them. Right? But in this route, they of course eat the male after copulation. And try this, they're healthy, so why don't we all just go and get very, very drunk? Absolutely incredible suction. Yes. Have yourself a merry little Christmas. Let your Marvin wah. Next year all our troubles will be out of sight. I think she must have misheard me because she brought me a bucket full of ankles. I strike stuck it at me. Chestnuts roasting on an open fire. Jack Frost nipping at you. It takes me back to my time in Anchorage with Stevie Wonder. Like, you funny, time. But and so I'm offering this simple phrase to kids from 1 to 92. Although it's been said many times, many ways, I'm clear. Although it's been said many times, many ways, once you actually broke through the crust, all that was left was rather foul jelly. Although it's been said many times, many ways, I'm afraid I was very, very drunk. Gentlemen, this way. You must know it, it's very old.
Nurses, Golden Fence and Carol singing in the library.
Really? I said it, it's the best news I've heard in years. I really pinch some ass. You deal with such a crashing blur, like never taking it anywhere at all. But I remember the time there was a firework display in the village. As long as it was yes, for the whole lives. It was quite frightening, you know, bang, crash, whoosh, fizz. I wonder how they actually do that. But anyway, so it was quite serious. It was hard. One girl was very badly burned. That's like this. And I was called on in my capacity as and I cracked my head very sharply off a piece of furniture. It was really falls when I get like that. I mean, I'm afraid that I was very, very drunk.
Poor Talbot. And my third wife was a marsupial. In the end, I had her spayed. I had to. She was reproducing at will. I got on the phone to them and I said quite clearly, and I got that guy there, and I pull. Pull. One chap had his foot blown off. I chuckled now, you know. You should have seen me at the time. I laughed for a week. Egrets, I've had a few, but then again, too few to mention. They're very difficult to keep. Like that, I'm going. I get out of here quickly. They kept me out there, so tied out like that. And the women folk ate the monkeys from the tail up. Drove them absolutely wild. Their king had a magic potato in the shape of Sam Hammond's face. And I put the wrong boy in the harness. He went like that, pow, 3 miles out of the bloody channel. I mean, I did it. Parents were absolutely mortified. I didn't give a toss. Because, you see, I'm afraid I was very, very drunk. Look at it. I thought I was going to do something like that. Look at this, look at it. I don't know what it was, but I remember seeing kind of really up this and listen, and it was getting boom, 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 came right past it, and I was quite I was in Cairo. This enlightened years at the time, and he was a cross between an estate agent and a wolf. I couldn't understand a bloody word he said. We lived off poisonous monkeys for every year. I remember the time, it's kind of like that, it was fun time, and three eyes went, and I had 6 breasts, I went, when I woke up, I'd married the bloody lot of them. You know, the mind has 1,000 eyes, the heart just one. Yet the light of a whole life dies when love is done. Oh, yeah. Come on, Birkin. And I found solace in a very beautiful woman. It was taken like this anyway, because she was part mermaid and part prostitute. Absolutely hopeless in the kitchen, but a bloody good swimmer. I remember I rubbed it and I polished it until it was red raw. I really did. I didn't feel a thing, you see, because I'm afraid I was very, very drunk.